People always ask me what I do. When I tell them I'm a flute teacher and performer, they look at me and say, "How? You're deaf?" It always happens. 3, 4. That's 2. 10 years ago, I started playing the flute and was making such good progress that I began to think I could make it to the top. I started to dream that I could perform in front of a massive audience with a full orchestra and play a brilliant piece of music. Now, all of a sudden, tonight, I am packing my bag for a flight to Russia tomorrow because I am going to play in front of the audience with the orchestra. I've worked so hard for this, but it doesn't seem real. I have no idea what to expect in Russia and afterwards in London. I'm really excited. I so hope I sleep well tonight. I really hope I do. Without my hearing aid, I am profoundly deaf. I can't hear a thing. If someone was to shout down my ear, I may hear it slightly, but other than that, I can't hear anything. When I wear my hearing aid, I am able to receive sound. If it stays high, then I can absorb a lot of sound. If it twists low, stay in a situation where I can opt out. That's fine. But when I am focused in on my music, then it must be at the maximum. This is the first day and the first rehearsal. It's been such a muddle. All the other performers have been rehearsing too, and I'm the last of the day. This has meant my time slot has been reduced as the day went on, and when it was my turn, the orchestra was tired from having played all day. I hoped for the best, but it soon became clear that it wasn't easy. I couldn't hear the orchestra because the piano was in the way. I couldn't follow the conductor's hand movement either. So it's been a really depressing, awful first day. Gonna play it out. Good morning. Hello. Alright.
How are you?
I'm okay today. Not sure what to expect, but go on.
You need a stand, yeah?
Yeah. So I'll be standing here. Can I have one music stand?
8 человек. От 4 пультов.
Oh, there. Thank you. Thank you. No, no, it's all right.
3. Только 3 волонтера. И.
Father and I were sitting there in the stalls, quite close to what was happening on stage. And we nearly fainted when we realized that she probably wouldn't be able to do this.
I think it's a bit too fast. I think maybe slow down a little bit. Just I think. Yeah.
Еще раз. Медленно чуть-чуть.
Чуть-чуть, можно медленно. A little bit slower.
Да? 3 и. Спасибо.
My father's with me because he's so knowledgeable about music. What with being a teacher, musician and composer, he's an invaluable support. And also, as a hearing person, he's been able to give me his opinion. He's so helpful.
Нет, сейчас я должен закончить.
I've still got the second, third movement, one more.
We haven't got time.
No,
They always
maybe
have to
tomorrow.
break. Yes, tomorrow.
All right, I see.
Tomorrow we do it all again.
Yeah.
Don't
I thought the orchestra was a bit quiet, or maybe it's me. Do you think?
They weren't quite, no. They're fine.
Okay then, thank you.
But it's because they're a long way from you.
Yeah,
That's a long
that could be it.
That's why.
Okay then.
You can't feel them. You can't feel any sound.
Really quiet.
Yeah.
I'm used to playing the piano where I hear
Yeah,
quite
it's
well,
very
but-
different. Very different. If anything, you were getting slightly ahead of us. Yeah?
Okay then, thank
Okay.
you. Thank you. Today's first rehearsal has made me realise that it's not going to be easy. I'm ready to play, but the texture of the violin was so soft that I'm straining to hear. So I lost the pose. I wasn't sure about the conductor's hand movement either because I'm not too used to him yet. As for my playing, I'm fine with the piano, but with the orchestra the connection isn't there. It was disappointing and the orchestra wanted to finish and get home, though time was short. I left feeling really low. Orchestra will now, will they?
No.
Thought it was me.
No.
You can hear the orchestra.
Well, you have to ask them if they can play a little bit louder.
I asked Martin, he said, maybe you're far away from the orchestra. Another thing I noticed on the stage today was that when I stopped playing, the conductor was talking to people like the French horn and others. I just couldn't follow it at all. I know he was talking in English, not Russian, but I still felt lost. I had no control on the stage.
Too soon. Came in too soon there, too early. Try and keep an eye on the conductor's beat. What he's doing that, isn't he?
Tonight, I decided to take a look at the tape from today's rehearsals to try and analyse where things went wrong. My father came with me, we went through it, so now I feel more ready for tomorrow. Hopefully.
Ruth was diagnosed deaf at around the age of 3 and started wearing hearing aids from that age. We weren't sure whether she had, we didn't know she had a hearing problem until then. She wasn't speaking as fluently, very fluently at all.
When I wake up in the morning and get out of bed without my hearing aid on, I can hear nothing. I go downstairs, fill up the kettle, put the bread in the toaster, and don't hear any of that. It's only after breakfast when I go and put my hearing aid in that I can hear my parents talking and other sounds around the house. Maybe my brother will play the piano. I can hear that too. All styles I know so well.
I can remember times when Ruth was young. One of the boys would be playing the piano and Ruth would climb across, sit on their laps or sit on my lap and play along with it, join in. I think we have, I can remember once crawling along the piano keyboard.
My parents are both musical and my 3 brothers and I grew up with music. We are all close in age. My earliest memories of music were going to concerts when we lived in London to some fantastic hall. I sometimes go a bit bored, but at the same time I'm fascinated by it all. That's really my earliest musical experiences from the age of about 5 or so. I remember when I was at primary school, a mainstream school, I often felt left out and alone in the class. I couldn't understand the teachers or what was going on. But when I came home, I was having piano lessons and I got a lot of comfort from that one-to-one tuition. I felt confident like I'm really being given something. But when I go back to school, I felt lost again. That's when I realised I belonged with music. After mainstream primary school, I went to Mary Hare. That was a huge culture shock to be surrounded by 200 deaf students and a sign language. Even though it was an oral school, my friends there knew sign language. It was a completely different world, but in the classroom the access was fantastic. Teachers were easy to live with, we all worked to support each other, the education was good. Music was also on the curriculum. That interested me. In my first year of music class, I was forever putting my hand up to answer the question, as the others did not know the answers. The teacher realised that I had some knowledge, but in the end asked me not to raise my hand so much. It was a bit boring for me, but the teacher realised I had musical ability. I wasn't so keen on the piano anymore, which the teacher was really disappointed at. In January, we had exams which I passed easily, and the teacher said it was time for me to learn an instrument. Since I couldn't decide, she said she would pick one for me, so she went into the cupboard, saw that there was a flute available, gave it to me, and that's how it all began. If I had been given a violin or a saxophone, I would have done just as well because I already had a keen musical interest. To have been given the flute was brilliant. When I was in the sixth form, I would sometimes practice for an hour really early in the morning. I'm so dedicated because I knew if I wanted to perform, I would have to learn as much as I could. But all my applications to music college were rejected, and I didn't understand why.
I took her to one music college for an audition, and she went through the normal process of the audition and did extremely well, and they acknowledged how great she was. However, it suddenly became clear that although we were going through the process, they had absolutely no intention really of giving her a place.
One college offered me a place just to see how I got on. I went, but it wasn't exactly what I had in mind.
Trinity College of Music asked me to assess her for taking part in their foundation course. And I was quite amazed at how well she played, actually. I couldn't understand how she did it without being able to hear. And I had some worries about accepting her because I didn't know how I would teach her. And I didn't know if we'd be able to throw ideas back and forth and how we would communicate in general. But I'm happy to say that my fears were unfounded. It wasn't very long before I forgot that Ruth has a hearing problem. And we just got on with the business of making music.
After Ruth had been at Trinity for 1 year, she had a final recital, which was the culmination of this year's examination. And I went to the recital. I was really excited to be going, and I took a little camera, which you're not allowed to do, but I filmed Ruth performing, and she was among a number of students performing that evening. That night it was clear that they wouldn't accept her on the degree course. She was equal to any of those students there performing. She was better than some of those students performing. And I remember going up to the head of the woodwind section, and I was, furious, I think, at this point, as opposed to being devastated and knocked back at the first audition. This was a year down the line. This is someone who'd proved themselves. And now they were being told actually no. And I could not see it. I could not understand why.
After the rejection, I thought I would look for a different college, and I was offered the audition. I played with them, I knew the piece well, and felt pretty good about the performance, until, at the interview, they asked me if I liked any other subject. I told them I was good at art, to which they said, "Perhaps you should do that instead." I'm stunned. That meant I wasn't good enough, that it would be impossible to break into the music world with that. My confidence was smashed completely.
The main problem they felt would be the deafness, not only in terms of her playing and being with an orchestra, but all parts of their course in terms of the oral. They'd have to change, they'd have to adapt, and really they weren't prepared to take what would be a risk, but a calculated risk. You know, here was a great musician.
Once I realised that I wasn't going to get into a music college, I started looking for work. I got a job in the florist, sweeping up and cleaning boxes and doing what I'm told by the boss. It made me all the more determined. I'm seething. They drove me to prove them wrong.
It was clearly evident from the very beginning that Ruth's musicianship is greater than many other people. It's hard to explain. It was so exciting going from one lesson to the next to see how much she would improve. And Ruth is so passionate about music that it rubs off, and I hope maybe some of my passion rubbed off on her as well.
Anne was very supportive and suggested that I find the Welsh College of Music and Drama. I wrote an application form with a strong supporting reference from both my teacher and Christian Rocker. After the audition, they gave me a plate. I was elated.
So Ruth went to Cardiff and spent 4 years at the Royal Welsh College of Music in Cardiff.
Every summer at college, we would have a session performance. My sister in the first year was from another part of the country and didn't know that I was deaf. I played with them and I passed. Again in the second year, a different sister who also didn't know that I was deaf passed me. I thought, look, I can do this. In the third and fourth years, the standards became really tough, particularly on scale detail. Sometimes a long note on the flute would drop, and I needed to remember not to let it happen. A hearing flautist would hear it and remedy the problem. I had to remember this information from my lesson, though some allowances were made. However, the assessment was still strict. Music college was tough, especially for assistant performances. Whenever I had one coming up, I also had invitations from my deaf friends to parties. I had to turn them down because I needed to be really focused. I love the deaf community. It's a place where I can really switch off, stand and relax, but I need to be ready for my assessment. It was awful not being able to explain to my deaf friends what music means to me. It's hard to understand if you're not a musician yourself. It can be lonely, having to be so focused. I had to be really hard on myself and spend a lot of time on my own, concentrating on the things I wanted to achieve. It was extremely tough. 4 tough years.
Every year she used to give a recital, and we did notice how well she was doing, how well she was playing, and so we was very proud of that. And then on top to write her dissertation, which gave her a 2:1, we felt really proud that it was such an achievement.
On my graduation day, I thought, yes, I've done it. This meant I had been through the barriers to get my degree. It wasn't about being deaf or overcoming my disability. It was all about the barriers I had faced over the years to achieve my goal. On graduation day, I was awarded a trophy for the best dissertation. I picked a provocative title. During my research, I found a quote that, "There's no point in teaching music to deaf people." I'm shocked that those kind of attitudes were still around in 2001. I was furious and wrote a strong piece refuting these theories. At the end, I won a trophy for the best research. I'm really chuffed. It was great.
That's it. You see, you carried on blowing there, didn't you? That's the much nicer end to the note. Try again.
In today's lesson here in this smaller space, the teacher is focusing on directing sound. I'm working closely with Maria on the piano, and it's mostly about guiding the sound to get it accurate. That's what I've learned today.
Okay, that's good. So you're doing it without, do it without the grace note for now.
So without the
For now. Da 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 dum da dee dee. It's just amazing that someone could have reached that level on the flute, and to be about to do these concerto performances in Russia and in Britain with big orchestras from a point of view of not really being able to hear very much. I was very impressed. And I was impressed by her kind of thirst for knowledge, for wanting to learn more and to know more. I mean, she's a delightful girl, and she came across as a very keen intellect, so she wanted to, benefit in every way that she could from the lesson time. Now, at the end of the note, we need to get the air to come out of the flute. Do you see what I mean? So that you're still blowing. There were times where Ruth was playing a high note at the beginning of a phrase, and she would just end it prematurely, very slightly, by a tiny, like a nanosecond, but I didn't feel as though she had expanded on that note to its maximum. So what I was saying was, love the note. That means to extend it for its full length of time before moving on to whatever came next in the phrase. That was what I was trying to get across there, that you've got to feel sufficiently about that note that you want to expand it for its full length and not kind of end it prematurely. That's it.
Today was important to me because it made me realise how much more physical I need to be in my playing. The orchestra is looking to me for their cues as to what I want from them. I've been so new to playing on my own that I've forgotten about other people. Today was a reminder that I need to make more use of my body movement and be more physical.
Good, that's good.
Look at that! My name in Russian on the performance poster. In an orchestra, there are different styles, textures, moves. It's like having actors on stage all bouncing off each other. That's what it's like with instruments. When they all blend, it's exciting. That's what the orchestra is doing, bringing all those differences together. All the high and low styles combining into a full style, making it so colourful, like a work of art. I feel so privileged to be performing on the same stage as Evelyn Glennie, someone I've admired all my life. Wow, there's a little deaf girl over there who's enthralled by what's happening on the stage. It's so visual and lively. She's already showing interest in music. If I could, I'd teach her all about the world of music, what that could open up to her. That's why I think music should be taught to all children when they are young. A lot of people ask me, how can you hear what you play? It's a very hard question to answer. It's a bit like trying to explain to a blind person what different colours look like. You can't, it's very difficult. I try to explain that I can hear well with my hearing aid, but without them, I'm deaf to the world.
Music of Life Foundation is an organisation that works with musically gifted young musicians with special needs and disabilities and with the deaf. We really believe that music has no boundaries. everyone thought that by the time Ruth is going to be on stage, there should be no piano there between her and violins, because it's essential for her to be as close to them as possible. So the first rehearsals, Ruth is standing on the stage. It's the end of rehearsal. Orchestra is tired. Conductor is tired. Ruth is over emotional about it because it's really hard. It's her first time, and I know the first rehearsal normally is very hard, but in Ruth's case, it was just a little bit too much.
It's just a real roller coaster, and in a way the music making is the easier part. It's trying to deal with the emotional side that is quite fascinating actually. So, and we all have to deal with that, and so I think this will be probably a life-changing experience for Ruth.
And he says you're coming in too early.
I have to watch conductor. Anyway, let end the conference for the good doctor to me.
Want a hug?
No, don't do that.
No?
Don't.
Okay. She asked if the piano could be moved, and after a lot of deliberation it was moved, but it wasn't easy. They had to rearrange the order of the programme in order to do this. But these are the things that have to be taken into consideration. If you've got someone who has a hearing problem, you've got to make sure that they can hear the other musicians.
Ba-da-da-dum. You don't get off this note too soon. Okay. Danzig. 3, 4.
Bottom note.
The high note. Ba, ba, big body, 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 body. If you look at Maria, it's impossible. You have to look at me.
Okay.
She won't be there in the concert.
No. Okay.
I will be here. Better. Today is better.
Today, yeah. I got new to your hand stroke.
You got?
I got new to your hand
Yes,
stroke.
of course. Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I just have to look for the downbeat.
Yeah.
Okay, do.
It's all a question of getting used to each other.
Yeah.
Dom, dom, dom.
Are you going to move the penton and the do? Are you going to move the band?
I can't remember. Did I use anything?
No, nothing at all. Dude, let.
Oh. I don't remember.
Okay, thank you, that was helpful.
Much better.
Today, I think my rehearsal went well. I'm quite pleased with the way we all gelled and performed as one. We moved the piano out of the way. I also began to understand the conductor more, his movement and style. At the end of the rehearsal, the conductor told me that when everything was finished, he wanted to meet with me. He took me through the piece of music, phrase by phrase, which has been so helpful. I'm much clearer about the hand movements now, which is so important. Tonight is the first night and the first time I'll be playing as a soloist in this setting. Really important for me. That means me on stage making all the decisions, controlling the piece, watching the conductor. It's daunting. It's a huge thing for me tonight. Music means movement. When you look at the painting, it's not just colours you see texture, roughness, softness, light and hardness. It's the same with music. When you play, you can be powerfully loud or gentle. You can give direction by playing faster or slower. It's art. I've taken music and made it my own. You can look at the sheet of music and feel nothing at all, but when it's played, that's when it comes out, when it comes alive. It's so exciting. You can pick any piece of music in the world and express yourself through it.
The thing about being a soloist is that you have to take chances. You know, you have to sometimes play the softest playing you've never ever played before, the loudest playing that you've never played before, or to try a phrase in a way that you've never actually played in the privacy of your private rehearsal room. You've got to take those chances.
It was lovely.
Yes, we thought Ruth rose to the occasion. She seems to have, she communicated to the audience.
Moscow, here I come.
I felt like I'd been transported into the healing world of music.